Izumi is a gloomy, antisocial emo who has no life or friends. However, his life takes a turn when the most popular girl notices that under the emo act, he's actually a Gojo Satoru level of handsome. Now, she will do anything to get his attention before all the girls of the school fight for his 6 inches. Before they meet, it was the middle of the semester and everyone in class heard the same thing from the teacher, who told them to enjoy their last summer freely. The girls start talking about hanging out after school. Yuki, the blonde, tells her friend Kyuko, the popular one, that another boy asked for her number, and rejects the simp's attempt, as he has no guts to ask her himself. When Kyuko stands up to leave, her phone slips and lands right in front of Izumi, the suspicious emo guy in class, and he picks it up for her. When he leaves, people whisper that Izumi's a geek, maybe even a crazy otaku, but no one really knows what goes on behind those long curtain bangs of his. Then Kyuko goes home, but unlike other popular girls, Kyuko doesn't have the luxury to hang out with her friends and talk about cute boys. She spends her time taking care of her little brother, living a humbly home life. Later that day, when her little brother Shota comes home, blood drips from his nose. Kyuko rushes to him, only to realize someone else brought him back. A handsome guy stands there, emo-looking and full of piercings. He's ready to leave now that Shota is safe, but Shota holds on to him, and Kyuko asks him to stay a moment so she can thank him. They sit down, and the guy says he's impressed that Kyuko can manage the house all by herself. Suddenly, Kyuko realizes that the guy calls her by her name, and even knows her school and class. She asks if they go to the same school, and he answers casually that he's Izumi. Kyuko can't believe that the suspicious quiet guy in class isn't a creepy shut-in who goons a lot, but instead a handsome cool emo. The next day she's still in disbelief, and Yuki notices her weird mood, but Kyuko just stands up and does something no one expects, walking straight over and talking to Izumi. On a quiet balcony, Kyuko and Izumi talk. She says Shota wants him to come visit again, and Izumi is surprised she talks to him again after yesterday. She admits it's a little awkward, but that there's no reason to avoid him. She saw how different he was outside school, and she knows firsthand that she's not that different herself. Izumi smiles, feeling honestly flustered, as he's not used to someone treating him so casually. Kyuko tells him it's no big deal, and even suggests that he style his hair the way he did yesterday. But Izumi refuses, as his piercings would show if he tied it up. From then on, it just became a routine where Izumi visits Kyuko's house after school, and during those first few visits, she learns a lot about Izumi, from how he likes manga, but he's not an obsessive otaku, how his family owns a cake shop, and how he got his first piercing in middle school, and how he's not actually smart despite the glasses. One day, while Izumi's over, Kyoko looks at a supermarket pamphlet and sees that eggs are on sale, but the discount ends tomorrow. Izumi warns her that the deal ends at 4 p.m. sharp, but Kyuko is confident that she can make it. But the anime gods hate her and set her a meeting with the council. But not wanting to lose the deal, Kyuko texts Izumi to get the eggs, as she figures he'd come visit Shota anyway. He agrees, and with 20 minutes to spare, Izumi dashes out, changes his appearance mid-run, and jumps the back gate, right in front of Yuki, rizzing her accidentally. He manages to get the eggs, but after battling Karens for them, Izumi never wants to do it again, but Kyoko truly appreciates it. Izumi casually mentions running into Yuki, and he hopes she doesn't recognize him, but something in Kyoko's chest twists, and she doesn't want anyone to see that side of him. She blurts it out louder than intended, and then awkwardly runs to the kitchen, but Izumi understands. He tells her he doesn't want anyone to see her other side either. As the one who cooks, cleans, and gets mad at little things, he wants to keep that mama bear version of her all to himself, but Kyuko can't handle the honesty, and she smacks him as she's too flustered to hear that from him. Then gym class comes and the students go swimming, but Izumi panics as it means that everyone will see his everything, including his tattoo. He shows it to her, a huge one, covering his left side, and Kyuko is speechless, thinking that he's brave or just dumb as bricks. Then, in class, Yuki and Toru start noticing how close Kyuko and Izumi have become. Toru pulls Izumi aside and casually asks if he's dating her, and Izumi immediately says no. Toru points out how different they are, and Izumi agrees half-heartedly. Izumi then guesses that Toru likes Kyuko, and he admits that he does, which puts both guys stuck in awkward conversations, until their friend Shu calls them to get ready for gym class. While changing, Toru asks why Izumi always wears a jacket, and not wanting to get pressed further, Izumi shows him what he's been hiding. Toru flips, questioning how a guy like Izumi has a full tattoo. Toru starts examining him, from his nice face to his piercings, and wonders whether this bum is the kind of guy Kyuko likes. The two end up talking more than expected, and Toru promises to keep Izumi's tattoo a secret, but he can't help wondering how they got so close. Izumi just says it's been that way for a while, and he thinks Kyuko is just being kind. After hearing that, Toru asks for permission to confess, and Izumi tells him it's up to Kyuko to choose. In the end, both boys skip gym class, leaving Yuki stuck with cleaning duty, and she is furious. Then, for the rest of the day, Izumi keeps his distance from Kyuko, as he knows how Toru has plans to meet Kyuko and confess to her after school. So he offers to pick up Shota instead, but leaves Kyuko for Toru, and he confesses to her. Back home, Izumi is getting ready to leave when Kyuko comes home, but she's pissed after hearing that Izumi told Toru that she was just being kind to him. Izumi stands by his words, as he believes he's too different from her, and he's hurting her reputation just by being around. Suddenly, Kyoko snaps, and she smacks him again. She tells him that he matters more than he realizes, as he often helps her wake up early, make sure no food gets wasted, and she likes being around him. And as for Toru, she tells Izumi that she turned
Let's go.
Days later, Kyuko takes Izumi out to buy groceries, and the two start to get really close. On their way back home, Kyuko sees an anime poster and casually hums part of the theme song. Izumi notices and says she's surprisingly good at it. Kyuko awkwardly denies it by slapping him on the face, but Izumi doesn't even flinch anymore as he's gotten used to it. She explains it's because Shota always plays that song, so she just remembers it. But when Izumi asks what kind of songs she actually likes, she goes quiet, and the truth is, she doesn't really know any other songs besides the ones Shota always plays. Then, when Kyuko gets back home, she's surprised to find her mom there, as for once, their mom actually has time to come home. Shota tells her everything that's happened from the guy who saved him, how he's actually Kyuko's friend from school, and how he's always visiting their house now. When their mom asks Kyuko about this guy, Kyuko describes Izumi like he's a villain nutjob in a detective story, but their mom just laughs and becomes even more curious. She asks for his name, and that's when Kyuko realizes something strange, that she doesn't know Izumi's full name, and she's only ever called him by his last name. That tiny detail nags at her, and Kyuko hates being curious like this, but asking Izumi directly would mean setting aside her pride, so she refuses to do that. Then during gym class, she comes up with an idea, and as everyone's changing, Kyuko sneaks a peek into the boys' locker room, hoping to hear someone call Izumi by his full name. Shu catches her immediately. Yuki even calls her a bit of a degenerate, but Kyuko doesn't deny it. Later, she checks the list of top-ranking students, but remembers Izumi's a bit of a small brain, so there's no way his name is on that list. Just then, Tor pops up to greet her, and when Kyuko wants to ask him about Izumi, Toru gets reminded of his rejection and runs away in tears. Then at dinner, Kyuko can't stop thinking about Izumi's full name. Her mom suggests inviting him over, as it's the weekend after all, and she'd love to meet him properly. That gives Kyuko an idea that if he comes over, her mother can just ask him. The next day, Izumi shows up, and he's a little surprised by how enthusiastic Kyuko's mom is to meet him. She sends Kyuko out for groceries on purpose, just so she can speak to Izumi privately and thank him for helping both Kyuko and Shota. When Kyuko returns, her mom's already gone back to work, and Shota is happily eating the cake Izumi brought from his family shop. Izumi casually mentions that her mom called him by his first name, and Kyuko, suddenly curious, asks what name she used, but she didn't get an answer, and instead Izumi teases her, saying she's been acting weird like when she was peeking into the boys' locker room. Then he asks if she has someone she likes in that locker room, but Kyuko doesn't want to admit anything, so she explains the truth. Izumi bursts out laughing, knowing that she did all that for his name. He borrows a pen, writes his full name on a tissue, and hands it to her, knowing that it's too awkward to call him by his first name. Kyuko sticks with his last name. Then she throws it back at him, asking if he even knows her first name, and to her surprise he does, which makes Kyuko feel a little childish, and they both end up laughing it off. A few days later, Kyuko gets a task from the student council, assigned by Kakeru and Sakura, who explain that since the new members can't handle it properly, they count on Kyuko, who's always reliable. She can't say no, so she agrees, and for days, she keeps doing the work, so much that even Yuki starts to worry. Toru and Izumi pity her from afar, but they can't even help, as they're both useless anyway. Izumi mentions that maybe Kyuko's doing all this for Kakeru's approval, as he is the smartest and hottest guy around. Just then, another council member, Remy, shows up and asks about the paperwork Kyuko is handling. After Kyuko hands her the documents, Yuki spills that Remy is just the useless council mascot who is Kakeru's girlfriend, and all of her responsibilities end up dumped on Kyuko. Kyuko agrees but doesn't protest, as, after all, Remy wouldn't be able to do the job anyway. Seeing how drained Kyuko is, Izumi thinks about bringing her a cake after school, but suddenly Remy runs past him and accidentally drops a bunch of paperwork. Izumi helps her gather it, but she's in such a rush that she tells him to just toss the last one, thinking it's not important, and runs off. But Izumi holds on to it, knowing that it's not just trash. That night, Kyuko stays late, finishing the last of her paperwork, and the next morning, disaster strikes. A crowd gathers in front of the classroom, and Izumi arrives to see Kyuko defending herself against the council. She says she submitted all the reports the council asked for, but Kakeru, Sakura, and Remy stand there, claiming they didn't receive anything from her. Yuki immediately pulls Izumi in, and Toru insists Kyuko is being wrongly accused. Kakeru claims that Remy never got the budget report, and accuses Kyoko of being sloppy. At first, Kyoko fights back, but eventually admits she's so tired she can't even remember how many reports she's finished. The whispers start and everyone begins blaming her, taking the side of the all-popular Kakeru. Toru's already pissed, and Yuki steps up to defend her too, saying Kyuko has worked non-stop for days, but no one listens, and they still want her to apologize for something she didn't do. That's when Izumi steps in. He hands his bag and glasses to Toru, and walks up to Kakeru. Without a word, he grabs Kakeru's tie and smashes their foreheads together. Everyone goes silent, and Kakeru is too stunned to speak. Izumi then pulls out the paper Remy dropped yesterday, and reveals that she told him to throw it away. Remy starts to deny it, but then remembers, realizing that she really did mess up. Her confidence crumbles, and she apologizes. Kakeru and Sakura prepare to scold her, and in the end, they all apologize to Kyuko for the morning chaos. Kyuko thanks Izumi, and Toru still asks why he had to headbutt Kakeru. Izumi just says he got pissed for a second. Then he asks Kyuko why Kakeru seems to be her weakness. Kyuko looks away and awkwardly says it's because she respects the student council president, and also because they're childhood friends. She reveals that she always teased Kakeru since they were kids, but before graduating middle school, he said that if she didn't start treating him respectfully, he'd expose how bossy she really was. So she had no choice but to go along with it. The next day, Izumi becomes Kakeru's new fear, and she starts tweaking at the sight of him. Later, during gym class, Toru and Izumi play ping pong while casually talking about Kyuko's birthday, which happens during spring break. That night, Izumi seriously considers what to get Kyuko for her birthday. Meanwhile, Kyuko gets asked by Shouta if Izumi will keep visiting them, and she doesn't know the answer, which makes her question when he will stop visiting them. Shouta tells her he would be sad if Izumi stopped visiting, and Kyuko admits that she would feel the same way. Then, when her birthday arrives, Izumi comes to visit, and he brings her a CD full of his favorite songs, which, deep down, is exactly the present that she wanted. And just like that, her birthday also marks the end of spring break, which means their final year has officially begun. For the longest time, Izumi never likes the idea of school, friends, or teachers. Since he's a little jit, no one ever tries to get close to him. Even the teachers seem to isolate him on purpose, making groups in class just to show how unwanted he is. He carries that pain with him, and he makes his first piercing as a symbol of it. By high school, the whispers behind his back never stop, and he hears them all too clearly. But then a girl talked to him, Kyuko, and she was the first person who ever tried to talk to him and treated him normally. Now in their third year, Izumi, Kyuko, Yuki, and Toru are still in the same class, and while the others chat casually excited about all of them being in the same class, Izumi still wonders whether he really belongs in this group. When the teacher announces a group project, Izumi braces himself for the worst, remembering how he used to be the odd one out. But then, without hesitation, Kyuko, Toru, and Yuki gather around him to make a group of 4, which is something he had never had before. At lunch, Izumi slips away to the rooftop to think, and Toru finds him easily. Still caught in his thoughts, Izumi asks what Toru thinks of him. Toru, annoyed by his shy face, answers bluntly that he doesn't like how close Izumi is to Kyuko, doesn't like his muttering, finds him freaky sometimes, and hates how Izumi is always so nice that Toru can't leave him alone. With his long hair and pretty face, Izumi is prettier than most girls, and Izumi's reactions are also annoying to Toru. Then Toru asks why Izumi still calls him by his last name, even though they're close now. Izumi tries to say Toru's first name but blushes, and the moment turns awkward for both of them. Izumi admits he's never called anyone by their first name before, and Toru calls him weird, which reminds him of his dark past, but says he doesn't hate him at all. In that moment, Izumi wishes he could go back and tell his younger self that everything turns out okay. The next day, because Shirata has started school, Kyuko has to become an early riser and arrive at school early. While lost in thought, Remi suddenly plops down in front of Kyuko, and acting overly friendly, she asks about her relationship with Izumi. Kyuko, caught off guard, says there's nothing going on. Then Remi gives a strange, suspicious smile and declares she'll take Izumi, since there's nothing between them. Kyuko is confused by her statement, and Remi explains that since Kyuko is not dating Izumi, she wants to date him. Then Kyuko starts imagining Remi and Izumi together, and she can't accept it. She quickly tells Remi that Kyuko belongs to her. Remi, unfazed, insists she'll still go for him, as Izumi isn't Kyuko's boyfriend, so she can't claim him. That's when Kyuko stands up and says that she won't let anyone have Izumi. The rest of the day, Kyuko can't stop thinking about her own words, and about Izumi. Back home, Izumi drops by with cake, but Shota isn't home. And ever since he started playing outside more, Kyuko and Izumi have been spending more time together, and that day they watched horror movies. Kyuko discovers that Izumi is a total scaredy cat, that even a ringtone makes him jump. Things escalate when the power goes out, and Kyuko calmly says it'll come back soon. And it does. Izumi feels embarrassed, but Kyuko keeps going to tease him, and she even lines up 5 horror movies to watch. Trying to change the subject, Izumi brings up Kyuko's hands, something Yuki mentioned in class. Yuki compared her hands to Kyuko's and noticed hers were smaller. Toru joked that even compared to a guy's hand, Kyuko's are tiny. Kyuko placed her hand against his but warned him not to dare try holding it, unless he wanted a fingerless hand. Then Izumi and Kyuko do the same hand comparison, and Kyuko makes the first move and holds his hand. When he grabs hers back, she tells him she loves him, but quickly says that she loves his hand. Izumi knows what she really means, but doesn't push her. Instead, he says he loves her too, and adds that he likes her hand as well. They both know it's not just about holding hands. Back at school, Rimi chats with Sakura about how Kyuko boldly claimed over Izumi. Rimi says she was just teasing, but it clearly triggered Kyuko's true feelings. Meanwhile, Toru overhears it all, and he feels conflicted. The next day, Izumi comes to school with a bruise on his cheek, and Kyuko asks what happened. He says he got into a fight with Toru, and Kyuko is ready to chew Toru out. But when he walks in, he looks worse than Izumi. Yuki pulls Izumi aside, while Kyuko goes to talk to Toru. Izumi explains he took the first punch, but the rest was self-defense, and unfortunately, he ends up hurting Toru pretty badly. Toru, meanwhile, tells Kyuko that it's not about who started it or who won. The night before, they were hanging out in Izumi's room, and Toru brought up what he heard from Remi and how Kyuko liked Izumi. Izumi denied it, saying they're just friends, and that he thinks Toru is overthinking things, as they won't know the truth unless Kyuko says it herself. That frustrates Toru. He slams the table and punches Izumi. Izumi's colder side comes out, and he fights back, but Toru quickly gives up, admitting he's been too pushy, and he feels bad about it. Izumi also apologizes, saying that he's been too harsh, and in the end, they forgive each other. As boys will be boys. Then the girls talk about it, and while Kyuko doesn't know why they fought, Yuki does, as Izumi told her previously that they fought over Kyuko. Some days later, as Toru is about to head home, a stack of papers suddenly rains down from the student council room, and Sakura is there. Toru hands them back to her, and he asks if doing everything alone is difficult. Sakura only smiles, saying everyone has their own tasks, whether it's Kakuru or Remi. Toru casually praises her, saying she's amazing for managing everything by herself, even when no one notices. Sakura looks away, flustered by the unexpected compliment. Later, outside the school, Toru meets up with Izumi, and Kyuko has given Izumi an ice cream to share. But Kyuko heads home ahead of them. Toru lights up when he hears it's from Kyuko, until he sees the flavor being melon, which he hates. Just then, Kakuru happens to walk by, and the two call him over and offer the ice cream instead. Kakuru doesn't have a reason to say no, so he joins them, and they end up chatting about random things. When Kakuru mentions Remi and Sakura, Toru suddenly wonders why there are so many girls on the student council. And that's when a wild idea strikes that Kakuru has built his own harem empire. Kakuru immediately denies the accusation, but Toru teases him, saying even the student council's air conditioner is under his divine rule. With a sigh, Kakuru says they're welcome to chill in the council room if they want, but he instantly regrets that, as the very next day, Toru and Izumi bring everyone to hang out in the room. Izumi and Kyuko lose at rock, paper, scissors, so the two have to go buy drinks while the rest wait inside. While they're gone, Remi brings up Izumi and Kyuko's relationship. Neither Toru nor Yuki has a clear answer. Remi keeps pressing, even suggesting Kyuko might be a better fit for Toru. Toru lights up at the idea, but Yuki quickly brings him back to reality by reminding him that he got rejected. That's when Sakura realizes for the first time that Toru likes Kyuko. When Yuki asks why it's taking so long to get drinks, the group starts throwing out absurd theories about what might be happening. Their wild guesses make Toru even more anxious, but Yuki tries to reassure him, saying maybe they just dropped some coins or something. Toru ruffles her hair in gratitude, touched by her optimism, but the gesture makes Sakura look away. When Izumi and Kyuko return with the drinks, Izumi immediately apologizes to Toru, saying that he didn't mean to do it. Already suspicious, Toru assumes that Kyuko got clapped, so he runs off before Izumi can explain. He misunderstands what Izumi did, thinking he did the freaky with Kyuko, but to his surprise, his cola explodes in his face, and they explain that Izumi accidentally dropped it before, hence why he apologized. Everyone bursts out laughing, and Sakura hands him a wet tissue with a small smile. Later that evening, Izumi is studying at Kyoko's house. Unfortunately, her AC is broken, and Izumi says he's used to it, as he usually sleeps shirtless anyway. That catches Kyuko off guard, and she remembers how casually he showed his tattoo before. Then she wonders whether she should really be the one getting flustered just because a guy shows his body. So she tries something and asks Izumi to show her the tattoo again. Izumi, ever straightforward, begins to strip, but Kyuko yells at him, telling him not to just strip because someone asks him to, especially without questioning why. She then asks if he's always this open to other people, and Izumi awkwardly nods. That leads to another question, but Izumi cuts her off and asks directly what she's trying to get at. Kyuko admits she's never seen him flustered, and it's always her who gets embarrassed. Izumi says he can get nervous too, like when he runs into an old friend Shindo. Shindo says he's proud of Izumi, but Izumi doesn't quite get why, so he teases Izumi about going on dates with his girlfriend. Izumi gets flustered and assures him that he's not dating Kyuko, but Shindo refuses to believe that, and it ends with Shindo believing that Izumi is dating Kyuko. Izumi promises that he'll explain to Shindo that they aren't like that, but deep down, Kyuko is kind of okay with it. Just then, Shindo suddenly texts a picture of himself and his girlfriend, and invites Izumi on a double date. Izumi can't hide his reaction. Kyuko sees it and tries to peek at the message, but Izumi panics, hides his phone, even snaps at her for a second. Then he calls Shindo just to shush him and hangs up. It's the first time Kyuko has ever heard Izumi yell at her, and she's surprised. Now she can't help but wonder what Izumi was really like back then. Days later, on her way home with groceries, Kyuko runs into Shindo, and while she doesn't know who he is, he knows who she is. In that moment, Izumi is out with Toru, and Toru notices Kyuko talking with a stranger. Recognizing Shindo, Izumi runs up and slaps him like he's Chris Rock. Shindo doesn't mind, and he just rubs his cheek and asks to be introduced to Kyuko. Izumi reluctantly introduces him as his old friend who's still in the 2nd grade. But when Toru asks who he is, Izumi just shakes his head. Kyuko finally realizes Shindo's grade, and he casually admits he's failed the exams and got held back for being a ding-dong idiot. But Shindo defends himself, saying his school is tough, as it's one of the best in town. Even so, he says he's jealous of Izumi, who seems to be enjoying his school life. Kyuko can't take the heat anymore and says she's heading home, but Shindo suggests going to a restaurant so they can chill under the air conditioner. On the way, Izumi remembers when Shindo first spoke to him. It's after a class switch, and someone bumps into Izumi and makes him drop his books. He's already having a rough day, but Shindo helps pick up the books and mispronounces his name. That irritates Izumi, but somehow, that's the star of their relationship, as Shindo keeps hanging around. Izumi overheard some of Shindo's friends asking him why he's hanging out with Izumi, but Shindo just brushed it off, saying he'll come back to them if he wants to. In the end, Shindo's presence changes Izumi's life back then, the same way Kyuko changes his life in this moment. The next day, Kyuko comes down with a fever, and her little brother Shota panics a bit. Kyuko, used to doing everything alone, still tries to go to school, but Shota takes her bag and makes her lie back down, promising to go to school carefully and get her the medicine she needs. She takes the medicine and eventually dozes off. In her half-asleep state, she dreams of the time her mother left her while she was sick. She wakes up suddenly with her nose stuffed from the flu, and beside her bed Izumi is there. He offers her a warm towel, and at first Kyuko thinks she's hallucinating. But Izumi explains that Shota called him. He asks about her temperature, and if she's taken the medicine. Kyuko says yes, so he goes to get a drink. But as he walks away, Kyuko suddenly slips from the bed and cries out, asking where he's going. She remembers when her mother left, saying she was strong and brave, when all she really wanted was for someone to stay. She grabs Izumi's hand and won't let go. Izumi understands and assures her that he's not going anywhere. He stays until he's sure she's okay, and even calls the school and her mother to explain everything. And before Izumi leaves for school, he says one last thing. He tells her he likes her, not caring whether she's asleep or just pretending. But she jolts up after he leaves, shocked by his confession. Then Kyuko takes 2 days off from school because of a fever, and she's already feeling better. But what makes her hesitate to return is Izumi's confession. She clearly hears him say he likes her, and now even sending a simple text feels awkward for her. Later that day, Shota sees Izumi with someone unfamiliar. When he gets home, he casually tells Kyuko that Izumi was with a girl, and they were super close. Kyuko doesn't even react, and before she can ask more, Shota already moves on to talking about yogurt. Trying to bring his focus back, Kyuko asks what the girl looks like. Shota says the girl is wearing a different school uniform, not one from Kyuko's school. Kyoko's mind immediately jumps to conclusions, thinking that the girl is one of the 100 of Izumi's girlfriends. Trying to stay calm, she asks how close they were, and when Shota just says that he was holding her really close, Kyoko drops her yogurt in shock. Even by midnight, Kyoko still can't bring herself to text Izumi, as her thoughts are too scattered that even a simple question feels impossible to send. When she finally returns to school, Toru greets her excitedly, but Kyoko quickly shushes him, as she's not ready to face Izumi. Izumi doesn't even notice she's in class until break time, and Toru points it out. After school, Izumi decides to talk to her and he catches her sneaking around and calls out to her, completely surprising her. He gets straight to the point and asks if she's avoiding her because of his confession the other day. But Kyuko has something else on her mind and asks who the girl was. Izumi blinks, clearly confused. He thinks for a moment, then remembers that it's Chika. Kyoko's heart skips hearing him say her first name, and tells him that Shota saw them holding hands. Izumi quickly explains that Chika is Shindo's girlfriend, and Shota must have seen the moment Chika tripped and Izumi caught her. Suddenly, Kyuko starts tweaking and throws books at Izumi for calling Chika's first name over and over again, while calling Kyuko by her family name. She storms off, but unbeknownst to her, Izumi doesn't know Chika's family name. Then comes the regret, and Kyuko realizes she's been ridiculous, and Izumi probably hates her now. That evening, Shota comes home with Izumi, who is there to return the book she threw at him and to clear things up. But Kyuko beats him to it. She apologizes for the book and awkwardly asks what Chika's full name is, and that is when Izumi reveals that he doesn't know. They laugh it off as it was just a stupid misunderstanding, but Kyuko finally brings up the real issue, the confession. She admits she was awake and heard everything, but Izumi knows that, which was why he confessed, and he just hadn't been brave enough to wait for her response. But right in the middle of their important talk, Kyuko's dad, Kyusuke, appears. Then his eyes land on Izumi, and Kyuko points out the cigarette in his hand to shut it down. But Kyusuke doesn't care and even asks Izumi if he smokes too, saying the piercing makes him look like a punk. Then comes a smack to the head from Kyuko, and Kyusuke groans dramatically, asking if this is how fathers get treated. He whines about coming home after so long, only to be hit in the head, have a stranger in the house, his wife gone, and no food. Kyuko sighs at his statement, but still makes him something to eat. Kyusuke now teases Izumi with Kyuko gone, leaning in too close and making all kinds of dad jokes. Kyuko has to smack him again just to get him to stop. Kyusuke apologizes for Kyuko's short temper, wondering out loud where she gets it from. But he doesn't stop, and he keeps pestering Izumi until finally asking if he is Kyuko's boyfriend. The room falls silent, but then Kyuko nods and says yes, which causes Izumi to blush instantly. Kyuko mutters that he doesn't like guys with long hair, forgetting he has long hair himself. Still, Izumi stands up and says he'll cut it if he has to, but Kyuko tells him not to, saying that just tying it up is fine. Then somehow he starts playing with Izumi's hair. He asks why Izumi would choose someone like Kyuko, and Izumi simply says that because of Kyuko he can feel love. Just then Yuriko, Kyuko's mom, walks in. She's so surprised to see her husband that she drops the groceries, and for a moment no one says anything. But she doesn't get mad, and she just mutters that she hadn't counted him for dinner, only Izumi, that in fact Izumi even has his own plate, while Kyusuke does not. When it's time to go home, Kyuko walks Izumi to the main road, and in silence, she reaches out and holds his hand. Izumi tells her there are still a lot of things he doesn't know about her, but he promises to learn, little by little, and she promises to do the same, which becomes the start of their relationship as lovers. That night, Izumi calls Toru and tells him everything, and Toru says he's okay with it. But when the call ends, he tears up, realizing that he's officially lost Kyuko. The next day at school, Sakura sees Toru from across the hall and notices that he looks down. Remi calls out to Sakura, asking what she's looking at, and Sakura acts overly defensive. But Remi sees right through her, and she calls Sakura out for being weird. Sakura snaps, saying someone as pretty as Remi wouldn't understand, and she walks off saying how she wishes she were her. She remembers how people always compared the two of them, saying how Remi is the beauty, while Sakura is the plain one. But deep down, she knows Remi has always been by her side as her best friend. So she runs back to her, apologizes, and tells her how she feels about Toru. Meanwhile, Izumi walks with Kyuko, while Toru is off with Shu. Izumi feels awkward seeing Toru in front of him, but Toru smacks his head and tells him to stop being weird. Later, Izumi studies together with Kyuko, and he asks her to call him by his first name, but when she tries to, it ends with her yapping all around the place. Now that Koyasuke is fully back home, Shota casually asks how long he plans to stay. Yoriko follows up, wondering if it's really okay for him to leave his work project behind. When Koyuko gets home with Izumi, Koyasuke doesn't recognize him at first because of the glasses, not until Izumi takes them off and looks him in the eye. Later at dinner, Kyosuke invites Izumi to stay the night, and in the end, Kyosuke ends up sleeping with Izumi, and uses the opportunity to ask what he likes about his daughter. Izumi simply says that he loves how she doesn't judge people by how they look, and that answer alone satisfies Kyusuke. By the next morning, the house already feels like one happy family, and he heads off to school with the others like a family. Some classmates catch a glimpse of Kyuko and Izumi together, and the news spreads faster than STDs that by the time the lunch bell rings, everyone knows. Toro and Yuki are both annoyed that people are laughing and gossiping about their friends. Yuki even ends up crying over Izumi. Meanwhile, two boys tease Kyuko about the relationship, and Izumi overhears them. He recalls how his friends encourage him to block the noise, but Izumi knows Kyuko doesn't deserve this kind of humiliation. So the next day, those boys kept mocking him, until Izumi walks in with a completely new look. No glasses alongside a clean and stylish haircut. Even the girls start to take notice. That sudden popularity makes Kyuko freeze up like the Ice Queen, as she's not thrilled her boyfriend is getting so much attention. Back at home, even Kyuko-suke doesn't recognize Izumi, and he needs Kyuko to remind him who it is. Later, Shindo calls, saying he's in front of Izumi's house with a gift. So Kyoko follows Izumi there. Shindo is dramatically surprised by Izumi's transformation, crying over the loss of his best buddy, but quickly shifts his attention to the gift. Knowing Shindo hates cheese, Izumi feeds him a cheese-flavored one on purpose, and Shindo falls for it. He then sees that Kyuko ate a candy that tastes horrible, and seizing the moment, Izumi leans in and steals a kiss from Kyuko, along with her candy. When Shindo looks back, the kiss has already ended, and Izumi just walks off like nothing happened, leaving Kyuko flustered. The next day, Izumi notices something strange, that a girl keeps following him with a dead serious glare. When he finally builds up the courage to confront her, she bluntly asks him when he will break up with Kyuko, which gets people's attention, but he assures her that he's planning to never break up with Kyuko. Later, he tells what happened to Kyuko, and as they are heading home, the same girl follows them again, and she casually introduces herself as Honoka. When confronted, she tells Kyoko that she doesn't like how Kyoko is dating someone like Izumi, because she likes Kyoko too. She hugs Kyoko and professes her feelings, and it turns into a tug-of-war between the two, both trying to keep Kyoko for themselves like toddlers fighting over their favorite toy. Toru, watching this bizarre scene unfold, immediately calls Yuki to witness the chaos. One day, Izumi heads home without Kyuko, and Honoka asks him about it. When he reveals that Kyuko already gone home, Honoka goes home but walks behind Izumi. But the more they walk, the more awkward it gets, as Adai are going in the same direction. Then, they enter the same apartment, and it turns out Honoka is his next-door neighbor. Izumi, baffled by the coincidence, tries to escape quickly, but Honoka realizes she forgot her key. Feeling bad, Izumi lets her stay over until her mother gets home. Now they're sitting in the living room, eating cake. Honoka asks if he's always this kind, to let strangers in like this. Izumi tells her that even Kyuko rarely visits his house, which Honoka mocks, calling it a shallow relationship, but Izumi fires back, saying he's the one always visiting her house. Their tension melts into casual conversation, and Honoka asks about Izumi's family and guesses he must have younger siblings because of how he treats people. But he informs her that he's an only child, which gets her to briefly mention her own brother, but suddenly cuts herself off, saying she's just teasing. Then she leaves as her mom arrives. Izumi notices the shift in her tone and he tells her she's welcome to come over anytime for some cake. Later, when Izumi's mother comes home from work, she mentions that Honoka did have a brother, who passed away about a year ago. The next time they see each other, Honoka and Izumi are back to bickering over Kyuko like usual. But when Honoka walks off, 3 older boys approach her, offering to do the dirty. She returns to Izumi in silence, but one glance is all it takes for him to understand. Izumi steps up and glares down at the boys without a word, which scares them off, and that becomes how Izumi and Honoka develop a strange love-hate sibling dynamic. Then, when Kyuko comes back, she sees the two of them continue arguing over who can be the better lover for Kyuko. Later, Izumi joins Kyuko and her father to watch a horror film about how a daughter yeeted a chair at her father. Kyuko gets so scared that he leaves to buy some cigarettes, and in that moment, Kyuko points out to Izumi how he never made a move on her. It flustered them both, and Izumi realizes that he needs to progress the plot, so he goes for the kiss. But Kyuko pops up to disturb their moment, and that angers Kyuko so much that she wants to recreate the film they're watching. Days later, Kyuko and the others stop by the bookstore. Toru, still feeling a little uneasy, can only watch the romance between Kyuko and Izumi. Yuki notices and casually pulls him away to be with her instead. One day, while cleaning the classroom, Yuki asks Toru to help her take out the trash. They share the same taste in films, so she invites him to buy a new CD together, promising they'll watch it later. Toru notices the attention he's getting from Yuki, but what he doesn't notice is Sakura. They bump into her at the corner, causing a drink from the trash bag to spill on her shirt. Yuki immediately wipes off the spill that splashes onto Sakura's legs, and Toru quickly apologizes before rushing back to the classroom to grab something for her. When the girls are left alone, Sakura asks if Yuki and Toru are dating. Yuki just chuckles and says they're not like that. When Toru shows up, he hands her his jacket, and while flustered, she's more than happy to wear it, knowing it's his. She then goes back to the student council room and meets Kakuru. Still thinking about it, Sakura ends up asking Kakuru why he likes Remi. Kakuru is surprised at first, but seeing how sincerely she asks, he gives her a serious answer. He explains that he likes Remi because, while he always thinks of himself as weak, Remi makes him believe he's strong and brave enough to protect her, by pushing him to grow beyond his limits. And in the end, it's Remi who protects him, and Sakura agrees, knowing how Remi always encouraged her. Hearing that, Sakura finally understands, and now, she tries her best to be braver too. A few days later, Sakura returns Toru's jacket, and before she loses her nerve, she hands him a bag of homemade cookies. Toru happily accepts, praising that they're actually good, especially the pink ones that have a sakura color, which he likes very much, and makes Sakura the person blush. Later, Yuki and Kyuko are browsing for another magazine. Yuki finds the one she wants, but suddenly stops when another girl reaches for the same copy. Without a word, she lets it go. Kyuko notices and asks why, but Yuki simply says the girl looks like she needs it more. Back at school, Kyuko brings up how Yuki hasn't been hanging out with Toru much lately. Yuki just says that Toru is busy having cookies. Just then, there's a moment where Yuki frowns, then smiles again. That's when Kyuko understands that the sadder Yuki feels, the more she smiles, as she never says what she wants and always keeps things to herself. But that's exactly why she keeps ending up hurt. Later that day, Sakura gives Yuki the same kind of cookie she gave Toru. Yuki is about to throw it away, but she remembers that Sakura made it as a thank you. In the end, she feels bad, and the cookies are really good, and she realizes that she's just jealous. Later, Yuki suddenly asks Izumi about baking. Izumi admits he isn't an expert either, but tells her if she really wants to learn, the only thing she can do is keep trying. A week passes, and Izumi and Kyuko are the first to try Yuki's not-so-bad cupcakes. Yuki says she doesn't want Toru to see them, but it's too late, as Toru finds out. He notices the bandages on her fingers, and even though they aren't perfect, he takes a bite and says that he'll be waiting for the next batch. Everyone appreciates Yuki's effort, and says the same, giving her the encouragement to do better. Days go by, and Izumi has to go to Hokkaido for a family matter, so he'll be gone for a week, while Kyuko is left alone, and because she's been with Izumi for so long, she still buys 2 drinks every day. She keeps counting the days until he's back, nearly losing her mind, counting and waiting for a message from him that will never come. Meanwhile, Izumi forgot his phone charger, so he went a week without contacting the others. When Izumi finally returns, Kyuko can't hold back. She runs straight to his place. As for Izumi, the moment he can charge his phone, he checks his messages and sees that there's one from Kyuko. He dashes out of the house, takes the elevator down, and when he reaches the ground floor, that's when Kyuko bumps into him. They finally see each other again, and they hug, as 5 days have never felt so long. Back at school, the girls ask Kyuko what Izumi dislikes, and she tells them that it's horror movies, though he still watches it with her anyway. The girls point out that he probably does it just because Kyuko makes him. Then Yuki says something that sticks in Kyuko's mind, reminding her that if she keeps presenting herself as a horror-loving freak, he might slowly start stepping back. So later, Kyuko tries to act sweet and scared at the film, following the other girl's advice, but only to end up making things worse, scaring him more than before. Izumi excuses himself to the bathroom to cool off, and Kyuko goes to her bedroom, thinking he dumped her. Hearing her footsteps, Izumi follows. He finds Kyuko slumped on the bed, upset that she's not the sweet, innocent type of girlfriend. But Izumi reassures her that he likes the real her, not some idealized version of her. She realizes that she's the same way, loving the real version of Izumi. As the rain pours heavily outside, the two of them spend their time progressing the plot, and they share their moment together behind the closed door. Some nights later, Izumi suddenly starts having nightmares of his past. In his dream, he meets his younger self, a boy full of hate, a boy who dislikes everything, has no friends, and is ready to give up on his life. Izumi stands beside him, offering comfort. He tells the boy to hang on a little longer, because soon someone will come along, people who care, people who accept them, and above all, a girl who will laugh for them, cry for them, and love them. Izumi wakes up with tears that morning. Meanwhile, on the other side, Kakeru, the student council president, always appears brave and cool, but he's not as cool as people think he is. Remi, his girlfriend, knows the truth and how Kakeru hates raising his voice when he scolds the others, how he laughs off jokes about being unathletic, but deep down it frustrates him, and how he likes being relied on, yet often feels anxious when he's alone. That version of Kakeru, the awkward, earnest one, is exactly who Remi falls for. When they first met, Remi noticed something different about him. While the other boys ogled at how hot Remi is, Kakeru casually said that Remi's fine, and that's the first moment she takes notice of him. One day in class, Remi sees Kakeru reading and decides to talk to him. They start sharing their favorite books, and Kakeru mentions that his parents have a whole room full of them. Remi asks if she can see it sometime, and he says yes. So one day, he invites her over and shows her the room. Among the shelves, Remi spots an old book titled A Day Before the World Ends. They grow closer through their shared love of stories. When Remi gives him another book to read, Kakeru hesitates, as he remembers that one of his friends likes her. He tells her that, but Remi just shrugs at what he says, and she asks if she can visit his house again. So the second visit comes, and inside that little library, Remi asks him what he would do if he were the last person on Earth. Just like in the book, Kakeru turns his back on her and tells her that he likes her, and then disappears. Remi freezes, questioning if he's joking, but Kakeru isn't playing around. When she steps closer, she sees his face completely red, and then she tells him that she likes him too, which becomes the moment the two become a couple. Meanwhile, in Kalko's room, Kalko tries out a new nail polish on Izumi's feet. As she bends over, Izumi gets a sudden impulse and lightly places his foot on her head. He apologizes immediately, and Kalko is surprised, but she doesn't mind it. She wonders how, in front of Honoka and Shindo, Izumi acts all tough and loud, but with her, he's soft and sweet, which makes her wonder which version is the real him. Izumi admits he's not really that tough, and asks if Kyuko prefers that he yells and hit her instead, but to his shock, she thinks it's hot. So they make a deal that Izumi will give it a try, and the next morning, he comes to school acting cold and cocky. It immediately startles the boys. Toro knows right away that this has Kyuko's influence written all over it, and Kakeru even tells him to stop if he doesn't want to, but can't, as it's for Kyuko. Then, during science class, they're alone. Izumi gives it another go, pretending to be a bully to her. Suddenly, girls from another class walk in and catch them in the act. They all run away, but Kyuko just smiles in pleasure. Meanwhile, Yuki receives a confession from someone, and after days pass, she doesn't know what to do. She finally tells the others how she wants to turn him down, but doesn't know how. Izumi has an idea that they pretend that Toru is her boyfriend, and he set it up with him. Then Toru agrees to the plan and holds Yuki's hand, which makes her wish that they're not pretending. They commence the plan where they act like a couple but let Yuki do the talking. Then the guy arrives, Akane, and the moment Toru sees him, it's game over. Realizing that the guy is so hot that even your mom would call him daddy.
Harder, Daddy!
Toru is instantly crushed, realizing he doesn't compare. But when Akane sees Toru, he takes the bait. He thinks Toru is Yuki's boyfriend and respectfully backs off. He apologizes and walks away. Kyuko runs up to Yuki, frustrated and asking why she rejected such a hottie. Yuki explains that Akane feels out of her league and she prefers regular guys and isn't into fancy types. Later, Yuki tries to get to know Akane, and Remi mentions that Akane is in her class, and he's kind of funny and clumsy due to his bad eyesight. That gives Yuki a thought. And after school, she runs after Akane and asks him straight up if he mistaken her for someone else because of his eyesight. But Akane smiles and says no, convinced that he didn't get it wrong, and that he's always been looking at her. As the two stand there, the others come to join in. That's when they all see it firsthand that Akane's eyesight is awful, as he keeps getting names and faces wrong. Days later, Kyuko is styling Izumi's hair again, but thanks to that, Izumi starts attracting more attention from the girls in class, which makes Kyuko jealous, so she drags him home with her. On their way back, Izumi passes two of his old classmates, the same ones who used to bully him, and they bully him again, showing that they haven't changed. Even with Kyuko around, they don't hold back. But watching her boyfriend get bullied right in front of her is the last straw. Without hesitation, Kyuko gives those guys the kung pao chicken to the face, and she and Izumi walk home with smiles on their faces. Meanwhile, one of the bullies, Tanihara, runs into Shindo, his face still bruised. He claims to hate Izumi, but even Shindo knows that Izumi is rent-free in his head, as Tanihara is the one who always brings Izumi up in conversation. Later, Izumi notices the redness on Kyuko's knuckles, and he gently thanks her, as for the first time he feels like he has someone who would get angry for him. The next day, Kyuko, still with her weird kinks, keeps asking Izumi to act tough and slap her hard, all with a smile on her face. That's when Shindo pops out of nowhere and tells Izumi to just do whatever his girlfriend wants, but not knowing the context, Shindo assumes something freaky is going on. Kyuko turns all whiny and pouty, while Shindo keeps pushing Izumi to go along with it, telling him to be a man and give it to her. So Izumi gives in. He grabs Kyuko's wrist roughly, calls her an ugly dog, and pulls her away, leaving Shindo confused with what he just saw. Then Kyuko stops by the Minimarket, and there, she runs into Tanihara and the guy from before, plus a third one. The two who met Kyoko yesterday instantly turn to mush. All she does is ask what they're doing and they panic, grabbing a plastic bag and claiming they're picking up trash like good kids. When she walks away, they see Izumi and get even more terrified when Izumi suddenly slaps Kyoko on the head. Now they fear Izumi even more than Kyoko. Meanwhile, Izumi is freaking out inside after he just hit his own girlfriend on purpose. But when he looks at Kyuko, she's smiling, so Izumi pulls her into a hug and lets her enjoy the freaky sensations. Back at home, Izumi pulls Kyusuke aside to talk, and the man is more than happy to help, even choosing the bathroom as the location. Izumi is about to question that, but lets it go. He tells Kyusuke about Kyuko's strange obsession, and how she likes it when he acts rough, but even her dad can't understand his daughter's taste. Eventually, Kyusuke explains it simply that Kyuko just likes seeing Izumi act opposite of his usual self, which to Izumi kind of makes sense. Then Kyuko barges in, scolding them for taking too long. But her father scolds her right back for overwhelming Izumi, and the two end up bickering like usual. Days later, Toro and Izumi are getting drinks when they run into a classmate, Mizuchi, and Toro greets him, but the guy just walks past without a word. Izumi says it's probably because of him, and he suspects that Mizuchi has a thing for Kyuko. But they both agree that if a man isn't serious enough, then he can't handle Kyuko's other side. Just before returning to class, Izumi realizes he might have left his phone in the science room, so he runs back to check. There he finds Mizuchi, and it's awkward, but Mizuchi ends up helping him when he sees Izumi fumbling around. He calls Izumi's number, and the phone rings from Izumi's own back pocket. Mizuchi gets mad with how careless Izumi can be, and wants to ask why Kyuko likes him, but he holds his tongue from talking further. Izumi notices, then he asks him if he could ever smack Kyoko hard. Mizuchi is confused and says no, as he could never hit Kyoko, no matter the reason. That's when Izumi smiles and says that he doesn't deserve Kyoko. Back in class, Kyuko asks if Izumi found his phone, and Izumi responds with forced anger, pushing her away. Mizuchi is about to step in, but Izumi stops him and lets her be, as behind that, Kyoko's face lights up and she loves it. Mizuchi apologizes for underestimating Izumi, realizing that he's a different breed after all, and Izumi thanks him with tears in his eyes. One night, Tanihara has a nightmare where he is locked in a room with an older Izumi, who judges him harshly, calling him pathetic for what he's done to gain attention. Then comes the memory of the school rabbits, and he sees how Izumi loves those rabbits. Tanihara wakes up in a sweat, and he asks Shindo for Izumi's number and tries to call him, but Izumi doesn't pick up. So he goes to Izumi's cake shop instead, and he meets him just as Izumi is about to close. Tanihara awkwardly pretends he came to buy a cake, and Izumi keeps his composure and points him to another shop around the corner. But Tanihara quickly says no, and that he'll come back tomorrow and get the cheesecake. Izumi adds that he should get the fruit tart as well, and Tanihara agrees to buy two, before holding up two fingers in the shape of rabbit ears. They both understand the meaning, and before leaving, Tanihara asks why Izumi didn't answer his call, and Izumi explains that his phone was broken and he might get it fixed tomorrow. Tanihara realizes that Izumi wasn't ignoring him, but that reminds him of how he used to ignore Izumi. Then he remembers how he forgot to feed the rabbits and they died, and he blamed Izumi for it. Now he's finally able to admit it, but he wonders if he could admit it to the real Izumi. Meanwhile, Izumi is helping Kyuko organize her bookshelf when they come across her middle school yearbook. She asks if he still has his, and Izumi gives a weak smile. He had almost thrown it away before, but after that meeting with Tanihara, he realizes it's something worth keeping. Now he can't wait for their high school yearbook because this time, he has friends and real memories he actually wants to keep. Days later, Izumi and Kyuko runs into Tanihara, and things get a little awkward as both of them end up blushing when they bump into each other. Kyuko starts tweaking at Tanihara, telling him that Izumi belongs to her, as what she fears is for Izumi to be taken by men. Tanihara quickly denies it, saying he's not Shindo, and Kyuko remembers exactly just how close Shindo and Izumi are. In a panic, Izumi tries to explain, but then the main issue, Shindo, shows up, and is standing right behind them, innocently greeting them. Kyuko asks if he's still close to Chika, but Shindo says Chika has been too busy studying for finals lately, so instead, he's been spending more time with Izumi. Those words light Kyuko's fire, thinking they got freaky as homies. Tanihara, still terrified of Kyuko, immediately drags Shindo away, leaving the couple behind. Kyuko makes her point clear that Izumi has to be cautious around guys, and that if he ever cheats on her, he has to promise that it's with a girl, not a guy. Izumi agrees anyway, and he informs the homies at school of the new rules. Elsewhere, Yuki is out shopping for art supplies with her sister when they bump into Akane. Yuki's sister immediately takes an interest, questioning how Yuki knows such a hottie like him, even teasing that they might be dating. Akane just chuckles and brushes it off, saying he got rejected. Yuki's sister is shocked at Yuki, knowing she rejected such a handsome guy. Eventually, Yuki pushes her sister aside, and Akane says goodbye, as he doesn't want Toru to get the wrong idea. Yuki goes along with the lie, but feels sad, knowing that Toru would never feel jealous for her. Even at school, when Sakura asks if they're dating, Yuki lies and says she's with Toru. Later, Yuki tells Remi about it, and she wants to clear things up with Sakura, but can't bring herself to do it. Remi says she won't tell Sakura anything, as it's not her place to do so, but it's Yuki's. She leaves Yuki alone after that, and Yuki knows that Toru never liked her the same way she likes him, and that she should have ended the lie after turning down Akane. But instead, she asks to keep pretending, quietly hoping that the lie would somehow become true. Yuki ends up skipping school for almost a week, and she doesn't tell anyone, not Toru, not even Kyuko. Toru gets worried at first but forces a laugh, thinking maybe she'll be back tomorrow. Yuki's sister, on the other hand, is furious, seeing Yuki skipping school with no real reason. She says the only explanation must be that Yuki wants something, as she remembers how Yuki has always been like this, even as a kid, where she never says what she wants, but cries when she doesn't get it. Her sister tells her to decide, figure out what she wants and go after it, or otherwise, she'll regret it. Yuki thinks about her sister's words, turns her phone back on, and sees a flood of messages. Most are from Kyuko, but her hand pauses when she sees one from Toru, and it says that Sakura confessed to him. Yuki returns to school the following week, and the girls in class look relieved, but she acts like nothing has happened. Later, Toru pulls her aside and takes her to the rooftop. Yuki figures that this is the end of their pretend relationship, and Toru must be with Sakura now. But to her surprise, Toru says that Sakura confessed, but never asked for an answer, as she still believes Toru is with Yuki. Yuki asks why he didn't just tell her the truth, but Toru says he's keeping his promise to still continue their fake relationship, and even if he could be honest, Toru admits he can't be with Sakura, as she's too good for him, and deserves someone better. Yuki freezes, and she feels bad for Sakura, knowing how Sakura has tried so hard, baking cookies and putting in effort, while she just runs away. And yet, deep down, Yuki feels a selfish happiness, knowing that while they aren't together, she's still the one closest to Toru. She knows how bad she's being, as while Sakura is warm and beautiful, she is cold and muddy. Yuki sighs, watching her breath turn to fog in the cold air, and Toru says that today is the coldest day yet, and now he can't wait for the snow to come. Yuki asks why, saying that snow is slippery, annoying, and muddy, and it's only pretty at first, but it melts in the end, as spring always comes. Toru looks at her sad eyes, and he remembers how her hand feels in his. He tells her that snow doesn't melt because of spring, but they melt when it wants to. Yuki adds that in order for a Sakura to grow, the snow has to go, but Toru sticks to his own words, assuring her that snow doesn't disappear just because Sakura asks it to. Yuki chuckles, saying that's not how nature works, but deep down, she understands he's trying to cheer her up. Toru is glad she smiles, as it's the first time all day, and he gently holds her fingers and leads her back inside the building. Meanwhile, Kakeru asks Remi why Sakura has been so cheerful lately, and Remi smiles and says it's because of the other way around. Kakeru is still trying to figure out Remi's riddle when Sakura walks into the student council room. She looks fine to them on the outside, but when she glances out the window and sees Toru smiling with Yuki, she freezes. Kakeru notices and asks what's wrong. She tries to walk away, but he follows, asking again. Sakura finally says it, that she's lost, and she's losing before she even starts. As her friend, Kakeru is angry on her behalf, and he calls whoever that guy is an idiot for not choosing someone like her. Days pass, and the group gets together again. Stops smiling that day and cries her heart out. Days pass, and the group gets together again. One lunchtime, Kyuko realizes that only she and Yuki have siblings, while the rest don't. But Toru mentions that Shu has one too. That surprises them, as Shu never talks about it. Toru says he only found out because he visited Shu's house the other day, and there he met Shu's little sister. But other than their similar faces, the two are complete opposites. That's when Shu walks in, holding a burger coupon, and the girls scold him for not giving off Big Brother vibes. Later, in another random meeting in the student council room, Kyuko asks why Akane still speaks so formally, even though they've all grown closer. Akane smiles awkwardly, saying he isn't used to being casual. But Kyuko brings up Yuki and how he was informal when being with her. She recalls how Remi managed to make Akane drop the formal speech with her by force, but when it came to Yuki, Akane dropped it willingly. So Shu jumps in and declares he'll be the first one to call Akane by his first name, and that confidence of him makes Kyuko a little jealous. Akane admits he does want to change. One summer day, in the middle of the semester, everyone in class hears the same thing from the teacher. Then Kakeru, the actual owner of the room, walks in. Surprised to see the random mix of people inside, Izumi and Toru instantly pull him in, using him as an example, saying that everyone there is also new to Kakeru. But somehow, they've all gotten close naturally. Shu stays quiet this time, because no one can be as bold as those two. Korko, who isn't following the conversation, decides to leave the boys alone. Akane chuckles at the chaos, and as a start decides Toru will be the first person he calls by first name. Then, like a jealous boyfriend, Izumi asks if Toru will call Akane by his first name too, and Toru says that maybe he would. At that moment, Izumi mumbles something about putting Akane on his blacklist, and Kakeru shivers when he hears it, but Izumi just laughs it off. Then, almost reading the situation, Akane casually promises that he won't take anything from Izumi, and Izumi immediately panics and bolts out of the room, just like Kyuko does when she gets flustered. The others are confused, but Akane understands perfectly. Some days later, Akane and Izumi argue on which of them are taller, and they even asked Sakura to settle who was taller between them, but it ended with Sakura scolding them for arguing over something foolish. Another time, Izumi tries introducing Honoka at school, and while she's still scared of guys, she's okay with Kakeru and Toru feels proud that he ranks above Kakeru. Then Toru and Kakeru even compete for Honoka's approval by offering her sweets. But when Shu pops up, Honoka gets scared, saying that he's too annoying, which cuts Shu's ego deeply. But then because of screaming too much, Shu ends up straining his throat. Kyuko and Yuki immediately scold him to go home if he's really sick. Shu isn't used to staying quiet, but with his throat hurting, he has no choice. On his way down the hall, he spots Hanaka carrying a heavy box. Since they're going the same way, Shu helps her carry it, without saying a word. Hanaka feels bad, thinking he's mad because of what she said the day before. She wants to apologize, but the next day she finds him back to yapping, and watches from afar. Sakura peeps up and Hanaka tells her how she wants to apologize to Shu, but when Shu pops up and starts yapping right in front of her, she panics and runs away, calling him annoying. Back at home, Shu's little sister Motoko has a problem after her teacher told her that she isn't good enough for the school she wants to apply to, and even laughed at her. When Shu sees Motoko slumped on the couch, he just sits beside her, quietly flipping through the newspaper. Motoko says she doesn't want dinner, and Shu calmly asks why. That's when Motoko tells him about the teacher, about how they laughed, not at the school, but at her grades. Shu's expression changes, and he gets mad. He knows how hard Motoko studies, and that no one has the right to laugh at her for that, and demands to bring that old prune to their house, so Shu can hit that guy for laughing at his sister. Motoko trembles as she speaks about how despite her best attempt, her grades keep falling, and her teacher says it's impossible for her to get into the school she wants. She cries from the weight of that reality. Shu finally calms down, gently pats her head, and tries to cheer her up, joking that the school she wants isn't even that good, especially their uniforms, so she should just choose his school instead, as the uniform would suit her better. Then at school, he asks Kyuko for a favor to help Motoko study. Kyuko understands and agrees, and she lets Motoko study in her room. When Motoko arrives, she mistakes Izumi for Kyuko's sibling. Kyuko says they won't start studying right away, as she knows Motoko still feels uneasy, so she focuses on getting to know her first. Bit by bit, Motoko opens up, and she says she only has Shu's number in her phone, and that he'll get mad if she comes home late. Kyuko chuckles and says they're clearly close siblings. Meanwhile, Shu drags Toru to a shrine to buy a lucky charm, the expensive kind. Toru can guess it's for Motoko, and he has a bit of doubt whether she'll accept it, but he reassures Shu anyway. And deep down, they both know that both siblings love each other. Later, with Christmas just around the corner, Shota asks Izumi to join them for Christmas dinner, but Izumi can't make any promises, as he has to help out at the shop during the holiday rush. Both Shota and Kyosuke end up whining, trying to convince him to come anyway. That just leaves Kyoko wondering who Izumi is really in a relationship with. Meanwhile, Toru is facing some personal turmoil, his complicated love life. He takes Shu and Kakeru out for food to talk things over. He starts to talk with how he used to like Kyuko, then talks about his strange situation with Sakura, and finally about him and Yuki, how they're too close to be just friends, yet still not quite partners either. Shu and Kakeru stay quiet during the first two stories, but when it comes to Yuki, they're left speechless. They both genuinely think Toru and Yuki are already a couple, so Shu asks again straight up if Toru likes Yuki. Toru admits it loud and clear that he does like her, but even then he says it feels a little weird to say out loud. Kakeru tells him it's not about what others think, but it's about what he feels and whether he is happy with what he and Yuki have. That leaves Toru stunned, questioning since when does Kakeru get so wise. During one break at school, Yuki comes up to him and asks if she can visit his place to try that video game from the other day. Toru hesitates for a moment, unsure if it's a good idea, but eventually gives in, as whatever he's worried about will happen sooner or later anyway. Later that day, Yuki visits Toru's house, and she's surprised by how big it is, but something feels off. Toru is acting weird, like he just brought home a stray cat, and he sneaks her in like he's avoiding someone. Yuki starts thinking maybe he doesn't want his parents to meet her or something. Then they reach his room, and Toru locks the door and loosens his necktie, and Yuki's imagination starts running wild. Toru notices how nervous Yuki is, so he opens the door again, in case Yuki wants to leave. But Yuki quickly mutters an explanation that she's not scared of him or anything. Then someone tries to enter the room, and Toru blocks the door right away. Yuki thinks it's his mom, but it's actually Yashiro, one of the housekeepers. Toru doesn't want Yuki to meet her, as Yashiro tends to be nosy and never stops asking questions. Even though she greets Yuki nicely, she glares at Toru and warns him not to do anything stupid, or she'll report it to his mom. Toru shrugs and says he can't do anything anyway, because of her. Yuki is stunned, wondering what he means by that. Toru notices her confusion and gently pats her head, then tells her to just play the game. Then Toru realizes that for now, this is enough. On the last day of school, the group is back in the student council room. As soon as Kakeru walks in, Remi is already waiting with sparkly eyes, asking him to spend Christmas at her house. Kakeru panics and blurts out a no. Everyone gets mad, and Toru even asks Izumi to hit him. Kakeru defends himself, saying they misunderstood, and that it's not that he doesn't want to go, but it's just that Remi's house is full of bugs, and Kakeru is terrified of bugs. Back at home, the family gathers in the living room. Yuriko starts bragging about Kyoko's grades, then brings up graduation. Kyoko goes silent, and she's suddenly reminded of how close she is to finishing school, and how uncertain the future feels. And just like that, Christmas Eve arrives, where everyone is enjoying their holidays. Just then, Akane happens to run into Yuki's sister, and she mentions his glasses, and he tells her he recently got contact lenses. Then, in a quick gesture, he offers her a pair as a Christmas gift, and suddenly, the two grow closer. Elsewhere, Toru and Yuki go on a little date. Shu spends his day beside Motoko, focused on studying, and Kakeru is still being forced by Sakura into braving a visit to Remi's house. Then, at Kyuko's place, voice, her dad keeps asking if Izumi will come, even though he knows Izumi has to help at the shop. But Izumi does show up, and the first ones to get excited are Kyusuke and Shota, as they hang on to him for a whole hour, even though he should have left already. Kyuko seizes her chance and walks him out, finally getting some alone time. She walks behind him in silence before finally stopping to bring up graduation. She tells him that she still wants to be with him, even after school ends. Izumi looks at her seriously, and then, without hesitation, he asks Kyuko to marry him. It stops their time for a moment, and when Izumi tries to walk away, Kyuko suddenly promises to make him happy. They bow at each other, promising to be together, but suddenly, Izumi gets a call from his shop, and he leaves Kyuko in the cold, feeling all hot and fuzzy inside. Then, on New Year's, they go to the shrine and spend their time together on a little date. Kyuko tells him how weird it is that he is the last person she's seeing this year, and the first next year, but Izumi wishes that is the case every year. Then, on their way home, Kyuko asks him if they're going to be together forever, and while holding hand, he promises that they will. Then the last day of school arrives, and everyone has already emptied their lockers, except for Yuki, whose locker is still as full as ever, and the same goes for Toru. But as true friends, they all suffer the same nonsense together, even until the end. Seeing Kyuko carrying nothing, Yuki and Toru immediately hand her some of their junk. Then, seeing Shu just standing there empty-handed, they suddenly remember they have a bunch of his stuff they never gave back, so now no one walks out empty-handed. In the student council room, while Sakura cleans up, Remi finds an old school pamphlet about a zoo trip that she wants to go to. Just then, Kakuru walks in with Akane, and while they chat about the holidays, Remi throws out the idea of going on a trip together. Before the boys can say anything, Sakura cuts in, trying to stop Remi from getting too carried away. Still, Akane adds to the chaos, talking about cars and road trips, saying how he wants to get his license soon. And suddenly, Remi goes quiet and tries to slip out of the conversation. Sakura catches on right away. She stops Remi, pinches her cheeks, and asks why she's trying to run away. Eventually, Remi confesses that she doesn't like the idea of everyone getting a license, as it makes it feel like they can go far away and never come back. Sakura reassures her that just because things change doesn't mean everything ends, and they'll still be together even after graduation. Akane even makes a promise that when he finally gets his license, he'll take everyone on a trip together. Elsewhere, Kyuko and Izumi are home alone, and Kyuko is resting her head on Izumi's lap, asleep. Izumi gets lost in thought, and a strange, quiet what-if creeps in. He starts thinking what if none of this ever happened, and he never helped Shuta that day. He wonders if Yuki and Toru would become close. Would Toru just stick with Shu? He wonders if they would have bonded with Kakeru, and would Kakeru meet Remi, or even whether Sakura would fall for Toru. Then he thinks about what would happen to him, and whether he'd still be part of the background, still running away, never speaking to Kyuko. But he quickly reminds himself that the thing with what-ifs is that they're just questions, because he did change, and he is now happy. Kyuko wakes up, catching Izumi in his daydream. She asks what he's thinking about, and Izumi replies that he was thinking of everything that led him here, and wondering what would have happened if he had missed even one moment. But Kyuko sits up, leans against his chest, and says softly that whatever happened, it was always meant to be, and even if he had missed one step, in the end, everything would still fall into place, just as it should. Then, graduation day arrives, and just as Kakeru steps up to give his speech, Izumi sneezes loudly and ruins the serious silence. After the ceremony, Izumi stands on the rooftop, and he sees his old self again, the shadow he used to hide behind. But this time, he doesn't run. He accepts it, and made peace with who he was. Down in front of the class, Kyuko deals with Honoka, who still refuses to accept she's leaving until Kyuko promises to let her visit. Back in the hallway, Toru finally makes peace with Sakura, and no hard feelings remain. Behind them, Akane meets Yuki and shares his vacation idea, and Yuki agrees instantly, as she knows that this will stick together even after school. And so, the school chapter truly ends. And with Kyuko by his side, Izumi finds his freedom, he finds his peace, and he finds purpose, as he knows that he will always be together with her, the one that he loves, and the one who changed his life. Comment down below, Power of Love, if you watched till the end and want a second part. Subscribe so you don't miss the next video.